Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later, we'll be talking about how to help the homeless without government intervention. But first, let's take a look at energy, because it's a big energy year. Every year is a big energy year. Amy Oliver Cooke from the Independence Institute, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, last year was this terrific compromise, and I got to give Hick all sorts of credit for dodging a political bullet, which could have cost him the election. If Jared Polis's anti-fracking measure was on the ballot, it wouldn't have done very well, and it probably would have hurt the governor. He helped broker this deal, and Jared said, okay, I'll take it off, but we need to have a commission. We need to have a blue ribbon commission, I forget what it was called, to solve these, whatever problems they were, and bring people together. So that's been now, what, almost 3 months. Tell me about the great progress they've made.
Well, a lot of times they can't even agree on an agenda. So there hasn't been a great deal of success, and it's the Oil and Gas Task Force and it's a 21-member panel, and they're supposed to come up with recommendations for how to further regulate hydraulic fracturing in the state of Colorado. Colorado already has some of the most stringent hydraulic fracturing and drilling regulations in the country. So what the anti-frackers want is essentially a ban on hydraulic fracturing. One of those people happens to head up the commission. And so I recently wrote a column where my prediction is this task force will have about as much success as the ill-fated League of Nations. There's just not going to be a lot of success. They can't agree on an agenda. I don't know how they'll agree on recommendations.
I mean, there was a political purpose for this commission.
Clearly.
The political purpose was to find some face-saving mechanism, particularly for Jared Polis, as he was pressured to get this off the ballot, not only by the governor, but also people in the Udall campaign who didn't want that to drag them down.
And let's be honest, there were some people in the industry that didn't want it on too. Some people did.
That's true, which, by the way, I think was a mistake on their part. I think the fracking things would have gone down badly, and that the argument would be over. The fight would be over.
Right.
We know how the people of Colorado feel, and instead we're just dragging the fight out for another day.
Well,
am I wrong?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think there will be any. I don't think there'll be consensus. Maybe there will, but I don't think there'll be consensus on major issues like setback rules or anything like that. And you've already heard some grumbling saying that there will be ballot measures in 2016. So essentially what we've just done is we kicked it to 2016, a presidential year. The other thing is the reason why whatever comes out of this task force, it still has to go through the Colorado General Assembly, and you have a divided General Assembly with Republicans in control of the Senate, Democrats in control of the House.
And that's not going to change for the next 2 years.
Yep, and I don't see how that.
And this commission has no authority. It can only recommend something.
And there can be, and what they want is they need 2/3 majority to come up with recommendations. I just don't see them getting it.
And those recommendations aren't guaranteed to be popped up in a bill or anything else.
No.
So it's again political theater at taxpayer expense.
Right. It is political theater, and that's about all it is. And it's going to cost taxpayer money. It's sort of like kabuki theater. It's all song and dance. Looks good. It did get the governor out of really some hot water dealing with the oil and gas industry versus anti-frackers during the 2014 election cycle. He got out of that, but now somebody's going to deal with it in 2016.
That doesn't mean energy is nice and quiet for the next 2 years. In fact, it's not Colorado's political structure that's going to cause some real interesting things. It's D.C. because although we've got a split situation up there, we've got a Republican Congress and a president who's a Democrat who does not like coal, does not like fossil fuels, and damn it, he's going to do something about it. What is it that he's done?
Well, through executive action, he instructed the EPA to come up with new emissions guidelines on carbon. So that means anything from a coal-fired power plant. So the EPA came up with a goal for every single state and then came up with a plan 4 building blocks is what they call it. They call this cooperative federalism, which essentially is...
Hold it. The Orwellian beauty of that. So let me see if I got this right. Without going through Congress, the president is using the power of the EPA through regulation, basically to choke down the coal industry, but it's called what again?
They call it cooperative federalism.
Cooperative federalism.
And they say there's flexibility.
Because bend over federalism just doesn't have the same ring. All right.
Right. So they come up with a goal by which there is no, and they're touting the flexibility of this plan. So they came up with a goal, and here's your goal, and there's no flexibility in the goal. And then they said, here are the 4 ways you can do it. One is you can find more efficiency in coal-fired power plants. The other one is you could fuel switch to natural gas. The other one is you could do more wind and solar. The last one is you can tell your consumers they can't use as much, and you do that by jacking up prices or shutting off their electricity at certain times of the day or night. So that's what they say. Here's your goal, and here's how you can achieve it, and that's flexibility, and that's cooperative federalism.
All right. Bring it to the state we love so much. So what choice do we have here in Colorado? I mean, we locally have taken on this issue. We've got, I think, ridiculously high mandates for renewable energy. I think it's ridiculous that renewable does not include hydroelectric plants, which I believe are renewable, as well as nuclear.
Yeah, and both of those are very clean sources.
Very clean, and as long as the snow keeps coming every year, it's renewable, at least hydro. So what does this mean for Colorado, and what if we don't want to do it?
Well, okay, so great questions. Number one is, what does it mean for Colorado? First of all, Colorado's goal is so aggressive. We get no credit for the previous policies that we have enacted. So we actually get punished. We get punished for what we've done in the past because they set our baseline.
Let me see if I got the EPA says you're going to be here.
Right.
With this, they get to set that, even though we went from a 10% mandate for renewable to a 20 to a 30, and then a couple of years ago, the governor and the Democrats pushed it on all the rural electrics as well. So none of that matters. They say, we'll use that as a baseline. Now you need to get to here.
Yeah, exactly.
So in other words, we would have been better off if we didn't do any of those, and then we could get to someplace reasonable.
States that didn't do any actually have lower goals. So we...
What's a no good deed goes unpunished theory?
Absolutely. And so we've already invested and this is even by the state's own comments that they submitted to the EPA. Colorado ratepayers have already invested billions of dollars in aggressive green policies, and now they're going to be forced to invest or spend even more on these. And what it means is, in the state of Colorado, residential ratepayers can expect their bills to heat and cool their homes to go up another 35% or so between now and 2020. Commercial and industrial is looking at like a 52% increase. The U.S.
And by the way, we need to make it clear, when those nasty businesses pay more in fuel costs, it's not like we don't pay for that. Only people pay taxes. Businesses only pass along taxes to consumers. So.
And the U.S. Chamber did a report, and they actually estimated that, you're looking at a couple 100,000 jobs lost because of this. I mean, the economic impact is absolutely devastating.
Again, without any congressional oversight.
Right. And it was never vetted by voters. It was, Congress did not, there's no enabling legislation. So the question is, what can Colorado do, right? Because we likely have a governor and we have divided government. So you may have one side that wants to implement, another side that's going to be reluctant to implement. So what can Colorado do, understanding the politics of our state?
Let me ask this question. There's nothing that stops Colorado from those carbon goals should Colorado voters and Colorado government decide to do this. In other words, we're only doing this because the Fed said do this.
Right.
This is not something that the governor said, man, we need to do this, or the voters passed an initiative said we need to get to this level of carbon output. No, this was the Fed saying, you state you're going to do this.
This is the EPA stating you're going to do it. And a bunch of states, by the way, 12 states are suing the EPA. A number of states have passed legislation saying only their state legislature can be in charge of a plan, any kind of plan. And part of that is to at least be able to hold somebody accountable so that if the state decides it's going to comply, whether or not they do, but if they decide they're going to comply and lawmakers vote yes to comply, then at least ratepayers and voters in that state know who they can hold accountable so that lawmakers can go, or lawmakers and ratepayers can go into this with their eyes wide open. So I think there are about 8 states that have passed some kind of legislation or are considering some type of legislation. And then there are 12 states so far that have joined in a lawsuit that's really being led by the Attorney General of Oklahoma to sue the federal government over these EPA guidelines because, or these goals, because it's really questionable as to whether or not they have the authority to do that. The problem with that is, if you're in a state that might move forward, they're not going to wait for a lawsuit to be decided. Utilities can't wait, and so they're going to go ahead and plan that these carbon goals are going to be enacted or are going to be put into some kind of legislation at the state level. So they have to make those plans now. So if you're in a state like ours where it's divided, I mean, there's more than likely we aren't going to join a lawsuit. The question is, what can we do to take control from the federal government and at least keep it within the state? So
in other words, the state should have at least some say, some either veto power to go, no, we're not going to do what the federal government wants. We're going to do what we decide. And if we can't do anything like that, we default to the EPA's
We do.
mandates.
We default to the EPA, and it would be essentially a shutdown of coal-fired power plants, which is exactly what the EPA would like. So what can we do? Well, one is keep the control of our electric grid, because that's the other thing. This is really a nationalized takeover of every state's electric grid. Colorado can reestablish itself and just say, the legislature say, listen, we have been in charge of the electric grid since 1935. We're going to keep it in our state legislature. And they can also have an open and transparent process. So they can create a framework that if we are going to comply, create the framework by an open and transparent process to develop this plan. So maybe the PUC or some other entity to have evidentiary hearings, then come out with an exhaustive economic and reliability analysis, give that to the state legislature, and then force them to fall on their swords one way or the other, yes or no, on a state implementation plan.
At the very least, it would be good to know where our governor, where each one of our legislators stand on this issue.
Right,
do we capitulate to the feds, or do we have our own destiny in this state? Was that the right way to put this?
It's a great way to put it, and if they want to drive up the cost of electric rates, vote yes.
I want to see their name on it. Amy, thank you so much. Stay tuned. You're going to like this one.